All right. Welcome to Driven AF Recovery. I'm Steve.
Maddie.
And Josh.
And Josh. And so a couple weeks ago we talked about this topic, and I have some things, and Maddie and Josh both have some things that we feel have become benefits of being an addict, you know. And I feel like this is important, especially if you're somebody who, you know, is new to this, or maybe even still in active addiction, or you know, just got out of treatment and maybe struggling, you know. A lot of the things that I looked at that I thought, you know, made me weak actually turned into a strength. And I want to preface this by saying that, you know, the strengths don't just happen. The strengths happen because of the work that we've all done, right? So if you harness what is already inside of you, you can develop strengths simply and solely because of the fact that you're an addict or an alcoholic. That's my thoughts on it anyway. I know you guys, you know, both agree with this, and that's why we, you know, decided to do this topic. And one of the things I always tell guys, you know, is I have a little stupid saying that I always tell them. I've actually developed quite a few. And you know, I apologize for my mom if she listens to this, or anybody else, for what I'm about to say. I tell guys we have to kind of raw dog life, okay? Because if it's my analogy that, you know, the condom, so to speak, has always been the alcohol or the drugs, because they desensitize all your emotions, all your feelings, so you don't have to handle them, right? Well, once you take the drugs and alcohol away, we are left raw with our emotions, our feelings, and we just have to learn how to feel them and live with them. And when you think about, you know, what society does when they have a long day, or they're stressed out, or they're upset, or they're angry, or they're frustrated, most of them turn to have a drink, a glass of wine, a beer, or
A gummy or a joint.
right, a joint, or a gummy, or maybe they take a Xanax, or whatever, right? Even if it's prescribed, it's what helps them get through. And not to say there's anything wrong with that. If you're not an addict or an alcoholic, you can do that, and that's fine. I can't. We can't. So we have to develop some kind of way to help deal with those emotions. So in doing that, you become more capable of handling stress, of handling emotions, because we're forced to, you know. And it's something I try to explain and impart on, like, the guys here all the time, is we're basically learning and gearing up to just be a better version of ourselves, and be, not to sound, you know, arrogant or egotistical, but to be better than most people at this stuff, because we're forced to be, because it's life or death for us. We don't have a choice, you know. So that to me is like the main thing. And then with that comes everything that we've been through, right? All the despair, the hopelessness, the pain, the suffering, the misery,
Death.
the death and being brought back to life, the hospitalizations, the detox, the withdrawals, all the things that we have been through would terrify and do kill a lot of people. Prison, yeah, fuck. How can I forget about that?
Oh, call that Lord. Because you want to.
Yeah,
Not
right.
that you do.
Trying to. You know, the fact that we've been through all this, like, we've been through pretty much the worst life has to offer. And we're still here talking about it. So to me, it lets you know, if you harness it the right way, that we have the capability to handle anything that comes our way. Unfortunately, a lot of times early in recovery, you know, little emotions and stuff like that force guys to go back out there. But again, if you do the work and you figure out how to handle these emotions, and figure out how to develop self-worth and self-love, and become a better human being and a better version of yourself, it's going to become a strength. And then before I pass it to you guys, the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, I was an arrogant, you know, self-centered asshole,
Me too.
right? And being an addict forced me, if I wanted to live, to make a lot of changes. And, you know, turn me into the version of the man I am today, which I actually do like, you know, and I don't know what kind of man I would be had I not been an addict. Probably still a dick, probably still really selfish and self-centered, probably still egotistical, you know. So to me, those were the main benefits that I've seen and felt, simply because I'm an addict.
I'm gonna play off of that a little bit. This is something I talk about in groups with guys pretty regularly. But it goes to what you're saying, like the perspective difference is what I value from, if I hadn't have suffered through all the shit you listed, I would not have the perspective on life, the world, the value of hard work, any of the shit that I really have now. Maybe hard work, I did do that, but I did it for the wrong reasons. I didn't have any real purpose to it other than to like buy more shit. Before the addiction, and in the addiction was just to buy my shit. But the perspectives changes, man. And I think, like, to go what you said, we're forced to look at our fucking flaws and our problems and the shit that we don't know how to deal with very well. All that shit, most people never have to look at.
Yeah, most people.
And I see people live their whole lives doing the same shit and not even knowing why, or enjoying any of it, and just kind of, I mean, what's the average normal seems to be go to work, drink over the weekend, go to work, drink over the weekend, watch TV. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, I used to do that shit too, but now, like, I'm actually living my life. I'm glad I was forced into having to, like, look at other ways of doing shit. Because I don't think without the prodding of suffering and all the shit that brought me to rehab, I think I would have been forced to do any of that. And then look at, like, I do a lot of fucked up things. I think a lot of fucked up ways, and I react to my emotions in a very fucked up ways, period. I mean, not even just the drug use, it's lashing out, fighting, anger, like all these things that, you know, contributed to my long and illustrious record. I wouldn't have had to been forced to actually deal with it until, like, I suffered enough to kind of be like that night in jail, looking in a mirror and saying, I fucking hate you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. There's a lot of value in that because I don't see things the same way. In a very positive manner, I mean, too. Like, for the most part, like the struggles in life, even I see as opportunity finally. But I don't think I would have ever gotten there. In all honesty.
Yeah. Good point.
You know, we're afforded a mentality, if we choose it, to change our perspective, like you were saying. Like, we can take all that pain and suffering, which was self-inflicted, from our past, at least majority. But we can choose whether to continue to see the world as a hopeless cause and I'm just gonna drift through it and get by at the bare minimum, or we can choose to see the possibilities, which I was just telling the guys earlier, like, the possibilities after getting sober are pretty much endless. So that's how I choose to look at it nowadays. It's like, I can do and achieve anything I set my mind to, because I've already, you know, given up the thing that I had once perceived as the most important thing in my life, which was alcohol and drugs, right? And I couldn't go an hour without it. I had to do it for work, to make movies and video games more interesting, conversations more lively, because I had social anxiety. But now that is not the most important thing in my life, I get to define what that is. And like I said, the possibilities are endless. And one thing that I think that is a huge benefit, at least for the ECS community, us guys in particular, is the ECS community. Like, we get this opportunity to be part of a brotherhood of guys just like us. Like, yes, we're all from different walks of life, but we've also gone through very similar, if not the exact same things, because of our previous fucked up mentalities. And now we see guys that have a little bit more time under their belt. We hear their stories, their experiences, and just like we were talking about in one night tonight, we get to ask those people, like, hey, so I'm dealing with this current situation right now. I remember you mentioning one time that you went through something similar. How did you get through it? Or what avenues did you take? And we can either take their successes or their failures and use that as knowledge to progress forward. Like, whereas I know for myself in my addiction, any failure whatsoever, no matter how minute, all the way to the biggest failure ever, was such an inconvenience that I catastrophized and drank over it. Like, it was horrible, but now I can use my own and others' failures to propel me forward, like, okay, don't do that again. And the next time it comes around, because life is just going to keep throwing shit at us, that we can succeed the next time around and maybe help another guy do the same thing. So this community aspect that we have, that is just right at our fingertips every single day, is monumental, at least for me, because it helps me and like propels my reason why to continue on, to help the next sick and suffering for those who can't.
Yeah, to kind of give you a reason to get outside of yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing is, both you guys were talking, I was thinking of like other things, and like now, you know, I felt like it was kind of hard for me to get going at first, but now I feel like the wheels are turning. It happens sometimes.
A lot.
Happens a lot, actually. Not gonna lie. Like, you know, looking at myself in the mirror, like, you know, like what you were talking about, and actually like facing yourself and facing all the shit I didn't like about me. Like, I would have never thought to do that. I would have never had the balls or the courage to do that.
Or desire,
Or
right?
desire, right, you know, had I not gone through the shit and realized, like, hey, like, you don't like what you see looking in the mirror. Well, if you don't wanna die from this shit, you're gonna need to work on fixing that. You know, and that gave me the courage to then face other fears. You know, like, once I faced myself, I was like, all right, you know, I'm dealing with the person I hate the most with at the time, which was me.
I think that's always, ask Doc, that's the case, and I would agree with that.
You know,
Self-destruction, there's a whole
yeah, right, so once,
existential group that's quite amazing on that.
yeah, and once I faced that, I was like, all right, well, like, everything else doesn't seem that bad, you know, and it gave me the courage to face all of my fears, you know, because I felt like I was in a position of life or death, which I was. I mean, you guys know.
You were.
I was in a coma. I had overdosed fucking 4 times in one day. You know, I got as low as a fucking human being can get, and probably as close to death as one can get without actually being 6 feet in the ground. And that's because I was an addict, and that's fucked up that I went there and got that low, but at the same time, I gotta be grateful for it, because it caused me to wake the fuck up, you know? And the other thing is, like, it forced me to grow up. And like, yeah, most adults grow up, that's what they do. This isn't something that's special for addicts, but like, you know, this whole process just changed my perspective, like you were saying, on myself, my outlook on life. Like, dude, I would have never fucking give a fuck about integrity. What the, you know,
I definitely didn't before.
what the fuck? I don't give a fuck
I'll
about
get
that.
away with it, I'm gonna do it.
You know, right? You know, steal your wallet and help you look for it. Fucking integrity. I don't know what the fuck that word meant until I came here. But now I think about things like that, and I take pride, and I have a sense of self, and that's ultimately because I was an addict. Because being an addict forced me to take a look at myself and look at these things that I really didn't like about myself, but I had never faced.
Right.
And never wanted to look at. And they're like, hey, like, why do you feel so low? Why do you have such self-esteem? Why do you have some depression? Oh, I feel bad about myself. Okay, well, why the fuck do you feel bad about myself? Oh, because I lie to people, I fucking steal, I fucking, you know, I'm selfish, I fucking, all these things. You know, it's like, okay, dumbass, well, why don't we work on changing those so we don't feel this way, and so we don't hate who we see when we look in the mirror. And I had not hated, but I didn't like who I saw when I looked in the mirror. It was uncomfortable in my skin long before I started doing drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
For sure.
that's kind of what led me to doing drugs
Yeah.
and drinking heavily.
Because it takes the shit away
Right.
until it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't think I would have ever had any reason or balls or courage or whatever you wanna call it to actually look at that shit and fix it. You know, and I'll say the other thing that we haven't mentioned yet, I think, is the resiliency piece of it. You know, we're pretty resilient creatures, addicts and alcoholics, you know.
Yep.
How many times have we fallen and gotten back up, or, you know, and the resourcefulness, you know, like we figure shit out, we make shit happen, we're, you know, go through hell and live to talk about it. There's a lot of resiliency in every addict or alcoholic I've ever encountered. And I think that kind of goes with what, you know, we were talking about earlier, like being able to handle emotions and stuff, because it's like, we've been training our whole lives for this shit.
I put it to the guys like that all the time, man. If you use all the things that you use to stay high towards something productive, there is absolutely no stopping any of us.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, it goes with, where was I? Oh, like that whole self-hate thing, I think is it. Like Doc does it for a group, so I'm stealing a little bit because, you know, I've watched a lot of this shit now. But it's like the resentment towards self, then the hate towards self, the cycle of violence, it torture myself because I'm a piece of shit, and like it doesn't end unless you fucking end it.
Mm-hmm.
The real reason it had to end for me is because I looked in the mirror and I was like, I fucking hate you, and then I also came to the conclusion that the only person that was able to change that was me, which is when I went to treatment, because I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've also had purpose, like clearly defined things in my life that I'm purposeful. I don't think I ever had that. I just did shit to make money because I thought that's what people do, which is
Right.
what they do, but
That's my
and then
purpose
just
for doing
spend it on shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, not that was purposeless, but like it was nothing very clearly defined. And I'm gonna butcher this Frankel quote, but something along the lines of like, a man with no clearly defined meaning or purpose will find pleasure to entertain themselves with, which I just fucked that quote up, but the point is there.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
I'll
I've
see
clearly
pleasure
defined
in
several
something.
purposes now. I know why the fuck I'm getting up every day. I know why I'm going to do what I do every day, no matter how, you know, time consuming, strenuous, whatever the fuck it is, because it's clearly defined why I'm doing it.
Or like Bedros put it with the dog, like, if we don't have a sense of purpose and routine, we will dig holes in our lives.
Same thing. Actually, oddly enough, I brought that to light in group the other day. I used that Frankel quote, but I at least read it off my phone that time. But I said that same thing. I'm like, it is the exact same concept.
It is.
Because I was showing that video, actually.
So I mean, I think for me, like, you know, like I said at the beginning, like I looked at this aspect of my life being, you know, a drug addict and alcoholic. It was like, I'm broken.
Yeah.
I'm cursed, or, you know, whatever, you know, like I got the short straw, like, you know.
Sure.
It's like it was such like a horrible baggage or weight that I was carrying around with me, you know, and I think a lot of people probably feel like that have experienced these things, you know, but if you can change your perspective, if you will, on it and realize that there's a lot of good that can come of it, you know. If I hadn't went through everything I went through and been forced to do the things that I felt I needed to in order to just live, then, you know, I wouldn't be the person I am now. And whether you like me or not, I can 100% wholeheartedly say, I don't give a fuck. I really don't. I don't care because I like me, and I have plenty of people who like me, you know, and I know I go out of my way to help people, and I feel really good about who I am, and I couldn't say that for a really long time. So if you don't like me, fuck off. I don't care.
I'll tell you what I'm like. And I will never care.
But I mean that because and the reason that happened, oddly enough, is because of everything I went through, right? Like, I used to be a big person who was very worried about what other people thought. I wore a mask to try to fit in with other people because I wanted to be accepted, right? Which is kind of what led me to my addiction, okay? But it got me to learn to fix the things that I didn't like and figure out what was going on inside of me and grow self-worth and self-esteem, grow it into self-love, right? And actually become okay with me and not just trying to live for other people or live to fit in or be accepted by other people. You know, my people accept me, my family accepts me, you know.
What else do you need?
Right. People that matter will accept you for who you truly are, as long as you're saying truly who you are, right?
Absolutely.
That's what matters.
I feel like it's an identity thing, man. You go from being a victim to a victor, as Eric Thomas would say, and I would have to agree with that, but you have a lot of work in between.
That's interesting you say that identity piece, is because, you know, that's the other beautiful thing you can look at too from this perspective is we can basically get to like recreate ourselves,
100%.
kind of force it.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, you are. You wanna do it right.
The old you was a piece of shit. We already know that. We don't want to do that.
We don't like that.
Right. Scumbag. But yeah, so you get to recreate yourself and decide like what qualities, what do you want to bring to the table? What do you want to be? What kind of person you want to be, man or woman, you know, and start your life over again. I don't know if that's definitely a perk, but you know, anybody can really do that, you know, at any given time. That's something I picked up from Ed Milet, and I just like to give credit is, you know, the beautiful thing about life is you can begin the next chapter at any time, right? So you can wake up tomorrow and say, I don't wanna be mean to people anymore. I don't wanna treat people poorly. You can make a decision to not do that anymore. You know, but I think we don't hold any specific claim to that, but I think we have a little bit different motivation to that, you know.
Not to die.
Wanna go back to prison? Lots of
So
things.
many different things.
Yeah,
Mine is not to die,
absolutely.
first and foremost. I like to live.
Anything else we wanna include on this topic?
We hit it.
Well, you know, for those of you addicts or alcoholics who do watch this, the few of you that do, we appreciate you all. You know, if you have any thoughts on this topic or anything you think we didn't mention, we'd love to hear it in the comments. And we'd love it if you shared. You know, hopefully maybe it can change somebody else's perspective on what they're going through or, you know, how they see themselves. Because I think that's definitely, you know, you hit it on the head. I think that's one of the biggest things for recovery is changing your perception, your perspective, whatever, of yourself. You know, because if you continue to look at yourself as like, oh, I'm an addict, this is all I'm ever gonna be, I'm, you know, broken, this and that. Like, yeah, sure, we're addicts for life, but we don't have to be an active addiction, and it doesn't have to be a negative. It can turn into a positive.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story.
You know? Well,
Peace out.
thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell.